Now, there's a storm brewing over revised NCERT Class 12 political science textbook. This textbook has hit the markets with some significant changes, including those in the text related to Ayodhya and the Babri Masjid, prompting the opposition to call it an attempt to saffronize and rewrite history. This textbook does not mention Babri Masjid by its name, instead calls it a three-domed structure. The text on Ayodhya has also been significantly reduced from 4 pages to just 2. The detailed text has also been axed, instead only being breezed over in the new textbook that has hit the markets now. But why is the opposition seething over these changes that have been made? Let's run you through them one by one. First, we'll tell you about what existed in this book earlier and how it has been modified now. So what did the text earlier say about the Babri Masjid mosque? It was referred to as a 16th century mosque made by the Mughal emperor. What is the change in reference? It is now described as a three-dome structure in the new version of the book. Then, moving on to the other changes that have been brought about in this book, if you could just continue this graphic further. There are changes in reference to the mosque. It is now referred to as something that was built in 1528 at Sri Ram Janmabhoomi. Then it speaks about Hindu symbols inside and outside that were present and clearly visible at the site of construction. Those are the new references that have been included in this book. Then comes to the next reference, which is about details of the Rath Yatra that was carried out by the BJP, then the mosque demolition and the violence that followed after the masjid was demolished. What has happened to those portions in the new book? There is only a brief mention of demolition and the activities that took place after that. It also mentions perceived challenge to democracy by some critics. These are the changes that have been made in the new textbook. Now, it also mentions, it has been updated to include a mention of 2019 Supreme Court verdict, where the matter was settled once and for all by the Supreme Court, ruling in favor of those who had been arguing that this was in fact Ram Janmabhoomi, after destroying which a mosque was built. Now, what has been removed is what we are going to tell you about next. Images of newspaper clippings and headlines from the December 1992 post-demolition, all those have been done away with in this new version of the textbook. Then there are headlines on Babri Masjid demolition, etc., that have been done away with. It instead highlights resolution that is based on archaeological and historical proof. So those are the changes that we can now see in the book that has hit the market. Now, moving on, let's tell you what has been deleted completely. The BJP Rath Yatra from Somnath in Gujarat to Ayodhya has been done away with. The role of car sevaks, communal violence in the wake of demolition of the Babri Masjid in 1992, all these find no mention in the new version. The opposition is now up in arms against the changes, calling it an attempt to rewrite history.
भारतीय जनता पार्टी की हमेशा कोशिश है, पिछले 10 साल से हम लोग देख रहे हैं कि वो इतिहास को अपने हिसाब से बदलना चाहते हैं। तो उनको इस बात की जानकारी नहीं है कि इतिहास बदला नहीं जा सकता। तो वो अपने सेटिस्फैक्शन के लिए जो भी कर ले, लेकिन तारीख अपनी जगह पर रहेगी।
सरकार उस क्वालिटी पर, उस सब्जेक्ट पर विचार नहीं करती, केवल परिवर्तन के नाम पर ऐसा काम करना चाहती है जो कहीं न कहीं विद्वेष को पैदा करे, कहीं न कहीं किसी को बनाने का प्रयास हो, कहीं न कहीं किसी को मिटाने का प्रयास हो।
अब अगर हम अपनी पाठ्य पुस्तकों के अंदर कोई भी इस तरह की चीज अगर दाखिल करते हैं जो कि इंटरनेशनल लेवल के ऊपर या बुद्धिजीवी वर्ग के अंदर जाने के बाद में अगर उसको शिकस्त दी जा सके, ये बात कहना है कि सब 3 गुंबदों वाला स्ट्रक्चर था, तो 3 गुंबदों वाला स्ट्रक्चर के अंदर जिसके अंदर सैकड़ों सालों तक नमाज पढ़ी गई, तो क्या वो सिर्फ 3 गुंबदों वाले स्ट्रक्चर के अंदर नमाज पढ़ी गई थी या किसी मस्जिद के अंदर नमाज पढ़ी गई थी? अगर फैक्ट्स के हिसाब से चलाना चाहते हैं तभी जाकर जो है हम भविष्य के अच्छे भविष्य की उम्मीद कर सकते हैं।
Now, the opposition and the critics are calling it an attempt to change history and hide the truth. The NCERT director issued a clarification on the reasoning behind this. He said that what is the need to teach about riots and violence in school, adding that teaching about riots can create violent citizens, and the idea of education was to create positive citizens instead, and hence violence occurs in schools.
NCERT कक्षा 12 की पुस्तक में बाबरी मस्जिद का उल्लेख हटाना यह उसी तरह का है जैसे भारत सरकार ने भी अधिकृत रूप से हमेशा बाबर के नाम को अमर करना यह हमारी सरकार का काम नहीं है। पहले जब नरसिंह राव जी की सरकार थी और बाबरी ढांचा या विवादित ढांचा उन्होंने श्वेत पत्र में कहा था वह ध्वस्त हुआ, तब भी उसको विवादित ढांचा ही कहा गया। शब्दों का किस तरह से इस्तेमाल हो, किस तरह से लोगों की भावनाओं का सम्मान हो, यह जो पाठ्य पुस्तक के पाठ्यक्रम निर्धारित करते हैं उन लोगों का काम है।
So what was the need for these changes? Are these course correction bits, or is it about cleansing of history and rewriting that? To answer those questions, we are now joined by Pradeep Mahor, who's a political analyst. Shyam Prasad Meka of the Congress is with us. Professor Tanvir Aeijaz, who's a columnist and an academician, also joins us on this broadcast. Professor Aeijaz, my first question to you. What do you make of these changes? Were they actually needed?
No, not at all. Not at all. I think, I mean, whatever the history talks about, whatever the history says, whatever the truth is, truth should not be the casualty, right? I mean, there's documentation across, right? We have legal documentation, we have social documentation, we have political documentation, all kinds of documentation is there. The facts are available everywhere. In all, I mean, suppose if we remove certain things from NCERT textbooks, but the history, which would be taught in other countries, other places, they would write, right? So the point is, my simple point is that don't treat students as guinea pigs, and perhaps here the teachers are also treated as guinea pigs, because suppose, students are very curious. They have critical mindset, right? They will ask a variety of questions, and various questions they are going to ask. They're going to ask that, I mean, why did Supreme Court call this whole act of demolition of a mosque as a criminal act? Why was this whole Ram Janam Bhoomi agitation going on? There are so many questions here, involved over there. What is the ownership conflict? So there are so many questions which are there, which students would perhaps then ask, well, how is the teacher going to teach? It is a question on pedagogy. It is a question on knowledge. It is a question on history. It is a question on truth. Truth should not be the casualty, It's the job of the academician, it's the job of the teacher, it's the job of the university system, it's the job of the education system to teach students the truth and not falsify it, not mythify it, not make it something like a ghost story or something like that. So I think it's not at all needed. It's not at all needed. Okay, you may put it briefly. I agree, not 4 pages, 5 pages, but of course now you can give links to the whole issue. You can talk about, I mean, should we not talk about world wars? Should we not talk about fascism? Should we not talk about Hitler? So, I mean, these are the questions which are...
Pradeep Mahor, is it a case of historic cleansing of sorts? Because what is the purpose that is being served by calling Babri Masjid a 3-dome building?
Right. First of all, we should use correct words here. And the correct words would be correction of history rather than, doing away or removal of certain chapters or doing eradicating some kind of a history. Nothing like that. Look, after the Babri Masjid case, it is pretty clear to everybody that inside that structure, I'll call it a structure, inside that structure, there were pillars. Pillars were found, and those pillars, obviously, they were not, they did not belong to any kind of a mosque. So that structure was not a mosque at all. It has been made clear by, I'm not saying this, it has been made clear by the Supreme Court of India. So that was not a mosque at all. There was a dome construction for the modification that 3 domes were constructed by somebody, some person who came outside, person who did not even belong to India. He came from outside, plundered a temple, constructed 3 domes. So as simple as that, it should be called as 3 domes. Why should it be called as, after this case, it should be called like that. So this is actually a correction. Rather than, there was one more thing that why it was not mentioned about, there was no mention about Kar Sevak and Yatra and all that. Look, if somebody is going into some deep study, somebody is doing some research work, then definitely he's going to study and find out all these things. He's doing graduation, post-graduation, he'll definitely go into that. But as far as 12th standard student is concerned, his brain is very, very, it's about to become mature. So for him, whatever needs to be taught in the history is being taught. If in World War, somebody starts, talking about the harsh areas of World War, definitely it will not be talked about. If we are going to talk about the World War, we are going to be talking about, for 12th standard student, we'll be talking about the broader history. That's it. So this is what is done. What is so wrong about, why is so much of gaga?
Shyam Prasad Meka, so the argument being made out is that it's just an upgradation and its broad basing of the basic concept remains the same. We're just leaving it for the students to grow up and find out in details later when they perhaps are more mature to understand the nuances of that historical event.
We can wax eloquently on either side, right? There is no point in it. And let's not politicize it. Let's say an academic exercise. The question is, why are we so afraid of truth? On any side, why do we need to whitewash the truth? History should be taught as it is, and we trust at least our 12th grade students who are probably becoming majors, adults, in a year from after that.
Okay.
If we are not trusting their judgment and giving them the right kind of history, this brushing under the carpet or whitewashing the history, that doesn't speak well of us as a society.
Okay, Mr. Meka, for argument purposes, society. Let's say, would you be okay with class 12 students being taught about 1984 Sikh riots in entirety,
course,
all
yes.
details involved?
Oh yes, why not? We should not be afraid of truth. Let's see throughout the history. Let me finish.
Class 12 student.
No,
wow.
No, wait.
Hey, come on. Be a bit logical. No, we are talking about a class 12 student. We are not talking about a graduation student. We are not talking about a PG student. We are not talking about a research work student.
My friend, don't shout. Okay, keep your logic to yourself. Keep your logic to yourself.
No, why? Logic is...
Sir, everybody has their own logic, and which is why we are here sitting together. Everybody will also get a chance to pronounce their logic as well. But Professor... Yes, Mr. Meka, please complete your point.
Let me finish. See, throughout the history, there will be rights, there are wrongs that are done. We are not afraid of facing the truth. Let our students be taught the history as it is. Now don't come and talk about whataboutery. It happened in 2005, the textbooks were like this. Oh yes, anything that whitewashes the history is wrong. We need to be a confident society which faces the truth.
Okay, Professor Aeijaz, tell me this. Is hiding facts not going to be detrimental, which is completely opposite to what the proclaimed aim of these changes are? Because irrespective of age and level of education, like Churchill said, if I could quote him here, people who don't learn from history tend to repeat the same mistakes?
Yeah, absolutely. I think what is important here is that let these students, and this is 12th standard textbooks, right? If you're writing any text, you have to give the context, right? If you teach text without the context, it has no meaning, right? Now, the point is that,
so should we remove this in entirety? If the question is that a class 12 student is not mature enough to understand the thing in entirety, should we now completely remove a reference of
12th standard
uncomfortable truths?
Students, the 12th standard students, just after some time, they are going to vote for their prime minister, right? So I don't think that they are not mature. They are fully mature. We receive students in the first year, right, in the university, and we can understand that they are fully mature. But try to understand this, that if they are taught wrongly, and when they come to university and they discover that they have been taught wrongly, they will lose trust on the government. They lose trust on the education system. They lose trust.
Last 30 seconds left.
Why are you,
Mr. Mahar, last word to you.
Hoodwinking the students?
Is this revision going to help or hurt?
Definitely it is going to help. Look, one thing is very, very clear. After Supreme Court verdict, it has been clearly defined that that structure was not a Babri Masjid. It was a modification of a temple. As simple as that. So that is what is being taught.
No, so nobody is disputing the facts here. The only question is whether a class 12 student should know about them or not, and how much. Mr. Mahar.
Hello. Look, they are being taught what by the Supreme Court. Second is all the investigations and research work that went on at that place. After that research work, things have been very, very crystal clear that area was a temple. And that is the reason Supreme Court has given verdict like this. So why should we keep that name Babri Masjid carrying on? Because after this, it has been very, very clear. When the clarity was not there, definitely it was called by some name. So when the clarity is there, dispute was this.
Sir, everybody now knows the details of the dispute and the Supreme Court verdict, but anyways, unfortunately, I've completely run out of time. This is a debate that is not going to end in 10 minutes on a news studio. Anyways, thank you, Mr. Mahar, Mr. Samprasad Meka, and Professor Aeijaz for joining us. We take a very quick break.